Remember the song, "Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger"? I mean, I love to dance to it, but it's really not quite accurate, because what really makes us stronger is our reaction to our challenges. So as you've been hearing today, there are athletes and explorers that set themselves dramatic, incredible, death-defying challenges. I mean, bungee jumping and skydiving and like that gentleman with the rock climbing. And these are all things that people can die from. But today, I want to call out and honor those people who face a death-defying challenge not of their own choosing. And there are millions of people that fall into that category. Take, for example, cancer. Now, there's nobody, I don't imagine, in this room that doesn't know someone that has had a diagnosis of a cancer. Maybe you're even the person. And as it turns out, worldwide, 14 million new cases every year. Over 8 million people die from a disease like that. So that's just one disease, but really, I mean, this is death-defying. And then, if you think about all the people who are connected to those people, you know, their relatives and friends who are going through it with them. We have a very, very large group of folks who are members of a club they would never choose to join. So let me tell you how I got my first invitation to one of 3 invitations to a death-defying challenge. The year was 1993. My son had been in the hospital in Dallas with pneumonia, lots of cases of pneumonia that winter. He came back to my house for me to take care of him. Well, he got this rash that really scared me, so I went immediately. I brought him back to the hospital, and the emergency room doctor got his chart, brought it in, starts reading it out loud. He says, 28-year-old male, HIV/AIDS status positive. And then he stops. And he looks at us and he says, "You didn't know? Nobody told you?" So sometimes these invitations don't come gently. My reaction? Well, I look over at the terror-filled eyes of my son, and I think, I have got to be a warrior mother. I have got to be strong. And I was so far from that goal. I said a prayer to myself, for myself, that I could fake it until I got there. My son had a healthier response. Initially, he had some depression but after a few weeks, he said, "Okay, all right, I've got AIDS, but I don't have to agree to die of it." And because I believe that the cure for AIDS is right around the corner, so if I take really good care of myself radically, I'm going to be there for it. So my second invitation came about 1.5 years later. I was actually at the nail salon in my neighborhood getting my nails done. And I see the baseball-capped head of my 6-foot-tall husband coming in the door. I'm thinking, this is not going to be good news. He came to get me because my very best friend of 20 years had called our house. She was in a hospital in Omaha. They had done some scans. The breast cancer that she'd been dealing with for several years was everywhere. There was nothing more they could do. She was dying. Well, I quickly found, we didn't have cell phones then, so I had to find a phone. I called her up, and I said, okay, look, I'll get on a plane tonight, and I'll be there with your children, for your children. So I made it up there late, and I come in her hospital room. I do not see anyone in this hospital room that looks like they're on death's door. In fact, she's entertaining the staff and some of her friends, which, I mean, that's kind of how she is, but it did surprise me. So after her friends leave, then she takes me aside and she gives me my invitation. And she says, come and be here with me while I do this dying, and then I'll be with you when it's your turn. Now, I'm thinking, how is that going to be? But I didn't argue. You know, I just said, okay, I'm here. I'm here. I'll be here, and that's it. So, okay, so we're everybody, we know we're all going to die. Right? I mean, there's nobody that isn't going to have to die. It's just one of the things on your list. And, but we don't think about it, and we certainly don't do what Socrates told his students to do. He said, practice dying. Practice dying. Well, Rose and I had not practiced. I mean, really. So here we were in the hospital, and, well, we just didn't know what was going to happen. One thing we did figure out really quickly, though, was if you don't have future time, all you have are moments. So we focused on the moments. So there was the moment in the morning when she and I would meditate together in her room. Then along about noon, we'd check in with the television to see what was happening with the O.J. Simpson trial, which was going on at that time, see what that craziness was all about. And then in the late afternoon and evening, her friends would come by and get to meet each other. Some of them didn't know each other. And we planned a women's healthcare conference that was coming up. We did think it was a bit odd that we were in a hospice room of a dying woman planning a healthcare conference. But that was just the way it was. So it sort of went on like that. And then I guess about 6 days into it, Rose says to me, I don't know, this seems like it's taking longer than I thought it would. I mean, how does it seem to you? I said, yeah, it did. It seemed, I mean, it was just, it seemed a lifetime. It seemed a lifetime of moments. Well, it got tougher after that. The 12th day, she no longer had language. So I had to become a warrior friend to really watch for subtle cues to make sure that she was getting enough pain medication to stay comfortable. Then it was the morning of the 14th day. Her noisy breathing got quiet. A nurse came in, she said, if she keeps breathing like that, she's not going to be here long. And then I realized this is it. This is the moment Rose was working towards. So I took her hand and I sang to her a song from my women's spirituality group. You are woman, you are woman, you go back to the earth. And at that moment, she stopped breathing. And it was, well, I had sorrow, but I was proud of her. She did it. She did it. Okay, so my third invitation was 5 years later, and yes, I was very sick of these invitations. This one came about from my daughter. It was the day after her 40th birthday, and she had been planning to celebrate by running a marathon. So I really thought that's why she was calling. But when I got the phone call, that wasn't it. She said, Mom, I'm sorry to tell you, but I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, I was livid. I could barely speak. My daughter had been telling her doctors for 5 years there was something wrong with her right breast. Every 6 months, they scanned, nothing showed up. They would even say to her, well, you know you don't have cancer, don't worry about it. Well, they found it, but they didn't find it early. So then I had to find some safe place for my raging anger. And I found that in my shower chamber. So every morning, I would do a sort of temper tantrum song to the universe. What good? What good? What good can come from this? What good? What good? And then I'd, get dressed and go on about my life like a grown-up person. But every morning I would do this. Well, I don't know. A week or so into it, the song started to change. Good could come from this. Good might come from. Good will come from this. And it did. It did. But it wasn't the treatments that were the good part. not only because they were painful, but because they didn't work. They didn't work. So a year into the regular treatments and the special trials, my daughter, thanks to the generosity of a 51-year-old male who was not related to us, but who was a perfect bone marrow match, she was given the invitation to do a bone marrow transplant. So, mother's, anxiety, but she went off to get ready for that, and I, with her permission, on her behalf, went to John of God in Brazil. Mothers will just do anything. So I went there for 2 weeks because I felt like we need to tune in to a more ancient form of, we have all the high-tech stuff, but the ancient forms of healing. So when I came back, I was her caregiver for 3 months. And looking back on it, that trip to Brazil it saved me from being my daughter's worst nightmare. A hysterical mother, and I really do know how to do hysterical really well. So, but, that she would have to take care of me. So what happened, there were these crises, of course, all the time. So there's a crisis, and I sit calmly beside her. I put myself back in the casa in Brazil. I connect with the love and the peace that I found there, and I bring it into the space where we are. Now, we always want the disease to be cured. And that song that I started out, whatever doesn't kill you, well, even if it does eventually kill you, it can still make you stronger. That's what I learned. Because my daughter's disease was not cured, but she was healed. Before my eyes, I saw her become the most mature, loving, beautiful woman. And I could not deny the effect her presence was having on everyone around her. And this isn't just a bragging mother. When at her service, one of her physicians came. He said, I don't usually come to my patients' services, but I had to come because she was an inspiration. It wasn't just how she handled her disease, it was how she handled her life. So, remember how Rose said that she was going to be with me when it was my turn? Well, obviously it's not my turn yet. You can see I'm here. But she was with me when it was my son's turn. So after 3.5 years of courageously taking care of himself, a rare form of cancer got around his impaired immune system, and he came home to our house to die. So we changed the living room into the dining room. His brother, Kevin, was with me. We were keeping a vigil because he wasn't expected to live through the night. So Kevin is talking to me, and he's got his back to his brother. And he says, I don't have to look back there to know what's going on. I can feel it. Ken's energy is getting so big, it's too big for his body, and it's filling this room. And when he said that, I said, yes, I feel that too. And then something made me go, and I took that energy in. And I felt the most incredible sense of peace. And it was odd because my brain was saying, your son is dying. But I felt that peace, like I feel it now in telling you about this. So after all these warrior mother experiences, I wanted to write about it, and I was working on a book. And with this thing, I thought, is there a name for this? Does anybody know about this? So I Googled it. I said, moments before death, energy transfer upon death, and it came up. The Encyclopedia of Death and Dying. And it said, not much scientific evidence for this as yet, but much anecdotal evidence. People report accompanying someone who is dying, they feel the sense of an energy transfer And that was so. That was so. So what do I do with all this? What do I tell my grandchildren? What do I tell you? Well, if you get a death-defying challenge, which could happen, I just want you to know, I want you to trust that it will lead you to a more vibrant life, and it will lead you to become who you were meant to be. The research, the resilience literature says this is post-traumatic growth, and I wish that for you. So I have one more thing I want to do before I finish. I want to share with you my favorite cartoon. It's Jules Pfeiffer, and the character in the cartoon is an anorexic skinny dancer dressed in black, bare feet, and ponytail. So picture that. The first frame in the cartoon says, "Life is worth living," and the dancer is ecstatically dancing. The second frame says, "Life is not worth living." And the third and final frame says, "I dance to perfect both answers." Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all so much.